Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Issues and Updates on this October 22nd, 2024. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioner Savas is out of the office at a regional transportation meeting today. All other commissioners are present. First, Chair, would you please convene as the Water Environment Services Board?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Water Environment Services Board of Directors.
This is request for consent agenda for Water Environment Services. Item 1, approval of a resolution of necessity and purpose authorizing the acquisition of fee property by good faith negotiations, if possible, or condemnation if necessary for Upper Kellogg Creek surface water capital improvement projects. Funding through Water Environment Services Surface Water Construction Fund. No county general funds are involved. Greg Geist, Director of Water Environment Services. Go ahead.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. This is a project that we're working on just to locate or geographically orient you. It's Thiessen Road south along Aldercrest to about Clackamas Road. And it's a culvert replacement project. This area notorious for flooding, so we're replacing a bunch of culverts and doing some other in-stream work to improve water quality. We have some fairly confused ownership in some of the areas along there, so we know we need the land, and so we would like to get this resolution of necessity approved so that we can enter good faith negotiations.
How many parcels of land and different owners will you be negotiating with?
I believe it's about 8. And
8?
We've got 4 that are totally willing and the ownership is clear, and 4 that are, one is still owned by an HOA that doesn't think they own it. One is still on the books as being owned by the developer back in the 70s. They don't think they own it. So we need to do some digging.
And what are you asking for today exactly?
Approval of a resolution of necessity so that we can enter good faith negotiations.
Questions or comments?
No, this is fine.
See no objections, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Would you please convene as the Development Agency Board?
I will recess as a Water Environment Services Board of Directors and convene as the Development Agency Board of Directors.
This is request for consent agenda for the Development Agency. Item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Milwaukee relating to the Southeast Stanley Avenue improvements. Total agreement value is $6,986,000. Funding is through partial reimbursement from the City of Milwaukee and $3,959,000 of budgeted Development Agency funds. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair Smith and Commissioners. I'm going to take a little bit of time on this because this is something new. Essentially, the Development Agency has been working with the city staff to formulate a plan for Stanley Avenue. Stanley Avenue runs north-south and is a city street, but that city street is, portions of it are in our urban renewal district for North Clackamas Revitalization Area, okay? Essentially, Stanley Avenue is an important active transportation connection link between Johnson Creek and Springwater Corridor, King Road, and Monroe Street. The NCRA plan, the North Clackamas Revitalization Plan, the urban renewal plan, identified and planned improvements to Stanley. It also was identified on Milwaukee's transportation system plan as a high priority project, and is also identified on our transportation system plan as part of the essential pedestrian network and planned bike network in this immediate area. We're looking at an IGA, and under the terms of the IGA, the agency will issue a request for proposals and manage the design, development, and right-of-way acquisition process for Stanley. Milwaukee will solicit bids and manage construction. The IGA commits Milwaukee to reimburse the agency essentially for our costs at a certain proportional amount, and likewise the agency to reciprocate those payments at a certain amount to the City of Milwaukee for construction. That amount, that proportional amount, is essentially 57.75%. So that's how much of that road is within the urban renewal district versus the area that's outside of the urban renewal district. I want to highlight the fact that the city currently has maintenance responsibility for the entire roadway, so there's no subsequent transfer that has to take place. As currently estimated, the agency would be responsible for approximately $899,000 for design services and about a little over $3 million for construction. And then Milwaukee would be responsible for the remainder of the cost of the project that are estimated to be about $599,000 for design and around $2.4, $2.5 million for construction. Again, those numbers equate to that 57% proportional discussion we were having a second ago. So anyway, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Again, it's a little bit different. There's different roles here, but at its core, fundamentally, the Urban Renewal District does bisect certain areas of that road, and it is in the plan to do improvements to that road. We're looking to partner with the city of Milwaukee to complete that necessary improvement.
So the total agreement value is $6.9 million, and reimbursement from Milwaukee is $3.9 million, and that difference is 57%.
Correct.
Of which the development agency is responsible for.
That portion that's in the urban renewal plan.
All righty. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
have
go
one. And Dan, the Urban Renewal Agency's got the 3.9
Yes,
on hand?
yes.
See no further questions or objections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, would you please convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board?
I will recess as the Development Agency Board and convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board.
This is a advisory board appointment for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Andrew will go ahead, please.
Madam Chair, the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Budget Committee currently has 3 openings on their commission due to 2 term expirations and 1 resignation. 5 total members are allowed. Through the recruitment process, 8 applications were received and 3 are recommended to be appointed. The recommendation is for Mr. Grover Bornfield, Robert Keys, and Ms. Wendy Radar, all for first terms. The District Board of Directors could select other candidates or require further recruitment, Madam Chair.
Questions or comments on this? I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Budget Committee as read.
Second.
Director Scholl moves that we appoint to the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Budget Committee Grover Bornfeld, Robert Keys, and Wendy Radar, and Director Schrader has seconded the motion. Further discussion? Seeing none, would you please take the roll?
Director West.
Aye.
Director Schrader.
Aye.
Director Scholl.
Aye.
Chair West. Chair Smith, excuse me.
Thank you. You were chair for a moment. Enjoy it. No,
Just for a second.
just for a
You
second.
can have the job back, please take it.
Okay, thank you. Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dominic. Chair, would you please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board and convene as the Board of County Commissioners.
This is now a request for consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. First, Health, Housing, and Human Services. Item 1, approval of a grant application to the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission for restorative justice diversion programs. Anticipated grant value is $500,000 for 6 months. Funding is through the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. Currently, Resolution Services is collaborating with the Juvenile Department and community organizations using the restorative justice model. Over the past 22 months, we successfully facilitated 14 cases with plans to increase this number to at least 36 annually. This grant will enhance collaboration by enabling direct referrals from multiple departments, sheriffs, district attorney, county correctional facilities, and community organizations. This streamlined approach will amplify our impact, fostering healing and accountability within the community. And for those of you who are new to restorative justice, it's when you basically have the perpetrator get with the victim and actually look for forgiveness of whatever that might mean in that case, where it makes sense.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval of a board order authorizing a purchase order with Robert Half International for temporary staffing services. Purchase order value is $301,365 for 2 years. Funding through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
As part of the division's Public Health Modernization Workforce Development Program, temporary workers provide financial reporting, accounting, and procurement services. Since this is a cooperative agreement, your approval will authorize the Finance Department to issue a purchase order for these services.
Questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 3, approval of an amendment to the Revenue Intergovernmental Agreement with the Oregon Health Authority to fund public health services. The amendment value is $335,669.49 for 11 months. Total agreement value is increased to $12,433,475.76 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. No county general funds are involved.
You heard a similar request last week. As we approach the end of the state's biennium, the Oregon Health Authority typically issues amendments to allocate additional funding to program elements. This practice occurs routinely to ensure our resources are effectively managed throughout the life of the agreement. Here's the anticipated funding breakdown for the following program elements. $134,893 to the HIV prevention program, $74,943 to public health practice, that's immunization services, and $125,833 to overdose prevention for the opioid program.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Seeing no objections.
Item 4, approval of a revenue grant agreement with Oregon Health Share of Oregon for a community capacity building grant. Total grant value is $1,334,306 for 3 years. Funding is through the U.S. Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services. No county general funds are involved.
These federal dollars provide a new, stable funding source for housing retention in Clackamas County and aims to integrate health care and housing, enhancing stability and health outcomes for the most vulnerable residents. This grant will enable us to effectively integrate this funding into our existing homeless services, expanding our recovery-oriented, wraparound approach through deeper housing and healthcare system integration. This federally approved waiver includes capacity building funds and opens avenues for revenue generation through Medicaid billing, a reliable funding stream for housing services.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 5, approval of an amendment to a personal services contract with Clackamas Women's Services for homeless services. The amendment value is $6,874,290.21 for 9 months. Total agreement value is increased to $16,056,849.63 for 3 years. Funding is through Supportive Housing Services Funds, Oregon Housing and Community Service Funds, and $88,836.47 of budgeted county general funds.
With over 40 years of experience, Clackamas Women's Services has been a pillar in our community, offering trauma-informed, wraparound services for those escaping interpersonal violence. Their comprehensive offerings include shelter, housing navigation, eviction prevention, and now the addition of long-term rental assistance. The governor's recent extension of funding for these programs extends these funds through June 2025. I can read off numbers served if you like, or stop that. We'd like to hear
Commissioners, do you want to
numbers
hear? Yes.
So this funding will allow CWS to provide vital services for the remainder of this fiscal year, 60 households per year in navigation and placement, 175 households per year in shelter, 170 households per year through rapid rehousing and emergency order funds, plus an additional 50 with supportive housing services funds, 100 individuals per year through eviction prevention, and 25 long-term rental assistant households per year in supportive services.
Questions? Seeing no further objections.
Thank you. Next, Transportation and Development. Item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon State Marine Board for a boating facilities grant at Boones Ferry Marina. Total grant value is $30,000. Required 25% match is through $6,835.84 of county park funds and $3,335.26 of in-kind staff time. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair Smith. Commissioners, Boones Ferry Marina is located just south of Wilsonville on the Willamette River. The 7-acre park has a marina facility. We've talked about this facility previously. This marina facility has fueling associated with it, and we have a need to replace the fuel line that's currently there. To do so, we're looking to secure a grant award from the Oregon State Marine Board, which will pay for about 75% of the total cost. The remainder of the cost that was identified is essentially in-kind staff time associated with managing the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Metro for a waste reduction and recycling grant. Total grant value is $793,880 for 1 year. No county general funds are involved.
Annually, Metro and Clackamas County collaborate to update plans for outreach, education, and technical assistance as it relates to waste reduction and recycling. Each year, there's an IGA between those entities, and essentially, this is the IGA that allocates monies from Metro, that allocation to our sustainability and solid waste program to implement that outreach that we're required to do. Right now, this year's funding is assumed to be about $793,000, and we're looking for your approval on this grant life cycle form.
What are you going to do with this grant?
Well, essentially, we're required to do targeted outreach throughout the community. That's with businesses, with community, with multifamily, about various waste reduction activities.
So we're going to educate people on how to recycle since nobody's recycling nowadays.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
So we're going to educate people on how to recycle and remind them to recycle since our recycling efforts are probably quite minimal in the county.
And additional opportunities to recycle. I think,
Like,
food waste reduction, things like that are going in our commercial restaurants, things of that nature.
okay.
Yep.
Other questions or comments on this? See no objections.
Item 3, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Estacada to transfer a portion of South River Mill Road. Total agreement value is $19,260. Funding is through the Community Road Fund. No county general funds are involved.
Certain county roads, such as River Mill Road and Estacada, are wholly, mostly, or partially within city limits. And essentially, fragmented jurisdiction over these roadways results in differing road maintenance activities and confusion by the traveling public on which agency is responsible for the road. This is an IGA with the city, which the city has approved to assume maintenance responsibility for this section of this roadway. Essentially, the IGA, which is about 49,000 square feet in total, the IGA of right-of-way, as the IGA essentially formalizes an agreement to provide funds from the county to the city in the amount of $19,000 approximately, and that dollar amount is equal to a 2-inch asphalt overlay on that particular roadway, which is per our urban growth management agreements that we have with the cities.
Questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 4, approval of a supplemental project authorization with the Oregon Department of Transportation for the South Holly Lane Abernathy Creek Bridge. Total agreement value is $9,397,500. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Transportation, local bridge program, and county road funds. No county general funds are involved.
So we're looking to replace a bridge. We have a bridge in poor condition. This is the Holly Lane Abernathy Creek Bridge. Essentially, it is load restricted, which I know is something that's near and dear to your hearts and what we're trying to remove. Essentially, Clackamas County applied and obtained a grant through ODOT's local bridge program and will complete the work under our local agency certification program. The project will be funded through the grant to the amount of approximately $8.4 million, and there will be a match from the county's Community Road Fund, the amount of, which is a 10.27% match, which is common, estimated to be around $965,000. With the completion of this repair and replacement of the bridge, the load rating will be removed.
Why was this bridge selected above other bridge where we've had an extreme amount of match, for instance, Bull Run?
For the Bull Run?
Why was this bridge selected above other bridges, and we have a minimal match on this, where we have a huge amount of match on the Bull Run? What's the criteria for ODOT for replacing bridges?
That we target bridges for certain programs that meet certain criteria with the way they want to allocate those funds. And so we've been actively trying to fund Bull, you know this discussion for a long time, actively trying to replace Bull Run. And actually, we did receive, if I recall correctly, I need to confirm, but we did receive design money, I think from this particular program as well, for Bull Run initially. And we're also looking to possibly queue it up for an additional ask on the construction side with this program as well. I need to confirm that with Mike Besner, but I believe this was the funding source that kind of got some advanced work on the Bull Run Bridge underway.
So was this picked because of population in the area? Or the
It's-
bridge
it-
is just really, really bad? Because as you and I know, and the board, there are many bridges like this in Clackamas County that have been waitlisted.
Yeah, I mean, we strategically look at those bridges based on certain criteria. It could be population in the area, it could be condition of the road, it could be load ratings that are on there. You know, right now, I think it's got a rating of 3
Oh, out of 100?
out of 100.
Yeehaw.
So essentially, we target those bridges for the opportunities that ODOT puts forward to be competitive. And we were competitive on this one, which is a good thing.
Thank you. Any questions, commissioners? Yes, go ahead.
One comment, Dan. I expect questions about the status of the Bull Run will be coming up before too long, and so if we could get something
Yep.
with an update on it, I'd appreciate that.
We'd be glad to provide an update to the board. We'll email that update to you and go forward. Yep.
Thank you very much, Dan, for bringing this forward. No objections.
Item 5, approval of a supplemental project authorization with the Oregon Department of Transportation for the Southeast Sunnyside Road project. Total agreement value is $2,010,000. Funding is through the Federal Highway Administration, Oregon Department of Transportation, and county road funds. No county general funds are involved.
As crazy as it sounds, Sunnyside Road is the busiest county-owned and maintained arterial in the county.
Wow.
Essentially, where rear-end crashes and turning movement crashes are the highest crash types of this corridor. The proposed solution is to implement an adaptive traffic signal control system on Sunnyside Road to improve traffic flow and reduce the number of stops, resulting in a reduction in rear-end crashes. Essentially, there are, I believe, 8 intersections that we are looking to link and queue the transition of those from certain stop, red, yellow, green, and to get traffic moving more efficiently and effectively through those areas. We have the preliminary engineering and construction phase for this project will be financed with a 90% of federal funds, up to $1.8 million. Again, we have a 10% match, from county road funds of approximately $200,000.
Yeah, okay.
Questions, comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 6, approval of a board order authorizing a purchase order with custom truck and equipment for a bucket truck. Total purchase order value is $172,980. Funding through the county road fund. No county general funds are involved.
Transportation Maintenance Program has requested that the Clackamas County Fleet Services purchase, I can read this off if you want me to, 2024 Ram 5500 4x4 Tyrex UT LT 40-foot bucket truck.
Exactly what I wanted to hear.
Exactly. I knew that was going to make your day.
Yes. No, seriously, it
It's essentially
does.
a bucket truck. This truck is planned to replace a 2007 truck that has reached its end of its useful life. They use these trucks for various services, be it traffic signal replacement and other uses that the Transportation Maintenance Group, or services the Transportation Maintenance Group provides.
The 5500 model, I'm not familiar. Is that a 1-ton or a 2-ton or 1.5 ton?
We're
Yeah,
going
I
to say
just wanna
2-ton,
know
and
the
we're going to, yeah,
20s.
come on.
Thank you for the specs.
You're
I'll
welcome.
look it up. I'll look it
I
up.
love buying trucks. It's great.
Love infrastructure, yes. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 7, approval of a contract with Eagle Elsner for the Wildcat Mountain Drive paving project. Total contract value is $1,284,180. Funding through county-approved American Rescue Plan Act funds. No county general funds are involved.
Man, I totally left that one back there in the back seat. I'd like to read, so basically, we have contracted out with Eagle Elsner for this particular contract. They went through a procurement
An
process.
assist there by Philip. Thank you, Philip. You're very kind right there.
Oh, Philip.
Yeah.
Best, Philip. Wildcat Mountain Drive paving project. Essentially, this is looking to resurface approximately 5 miles of Wildcat Mountain Drive. It's classified as a rural connector. It's resurfacing between Furwood Road and the end of our county maintenance portion. This project was advertised in accordance with ORS and LCRB rules on August 14th, 2024, through appropriate bids. Bids are publicly open September 12th. There were 6 bidders. Essentially, Eagle Elsner was found to be the lowest responsive bidder.
Commissioner West?
Where, can you tell me, where is that exactly?
Is it south of Molalla?
Yeah, I believe so. Because if it's the end of the county maintenance section, it's Wildcat Mountain Drive is heading down
224.
Correct.
Halfway between Clackamas and Estacado.
Correct.
Take a right-hand turn, it takes you up to the hinterland.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Correct.
It comes down onto Highway 26, but the last few miles is, you gotta have your.
So,
4x4.
so it is updating infrastructure in our rural community in the
Oh,
county.
yes, yes.
So here's, I just want to not, just speak to, I know that sometimes our constituents that don't live in the urban area feel like they are often the last ones to get support or to have the county be as responsive as the urban areas. There is that kind of rural-urban divide, not just in Clackamas County, but it's very strong in this state. I just want to reiterate or make clear that in Clackamas County, we want to make sure that the infrastructure, and we do, is managed well, not just in our urban areas, but also in our rural areas. And so we want to be responsive to those needs too. And I think we're trying to be, and this is just one example of that. We manage 1,400 plus miles of county roads, which is, it sounds like a lot because it is. It's a big number. And we have to prioritize different projects, and we try to be responsive to our constituents. So if you're listening and you're a part of that constituency, we want to be responsive to your needs in your own community. We try to be, and we will try to get to your road project as soon as possible. But this is just one example where we are making sure that we are doing what's necessary and needed for that community of our county also. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Seeing no objections, thank you.
And that is the list of consent items. This will all be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda for your action. Next, nurse navigation update. You asked for this, Commissioners, so we have Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, and Philip Mason Joyner, Public Health Director.
Philip's going solo.
Hello, Philip.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Excited to join you this morning to provide your first update on the nurse navigation program here in Clackamas County. This is informational only, but this program now has been implemented for just over 1 month. We are the first county in Oregon to implement this program, so very excited about it, that it's getting started and it's happening. This program is provided by our private ambulance company, American Medical Response Northwest, and it's a new service for our community where 911 dispatchers transport medical calls that are non-emergent to a nurse triage call center that provides clinical advice and connects the caller to appropriate resources that best meet their needs. Over the first month, 84 calls were transferred to the Nurse Navigation Center, so we're averaging around 3 to 4 calls per day. 28 of those calls were resolved through clinical consultation with the nurse. Half of those calls resulted in basic life support. So we're starting out very conservative in our approach and cautious, but these are calls where an ambulance came to provide services at wherever the call originated from, either home or out in the community. A fire truck did not come. They did not come in lights and sirens. This is a great benefit, assuring that those other emergency services are available for more critical calls, should they be needed. The remaining handful of calls, a couple were sent back to 911 after the nurse interviewed the caller and got more information. A couple were after hours, resulting in the caller needing to go to the emergency department, and transportation was provided by this program. 2 home health visits occurred, and in 5 of the calls, the nurse was able to help the caller schedule medical appointments at a clinic in the community. So out of these 84 calls, every caller is asked to do a quick client satisfaction score, 100% score, 5 out of 5 satisfaction start. And then on the second page of the memo, we have a nice little heat map, just giving you a flavor of where the calls are coming from. And from my perspective, you can see it's pretty much all across Clackamas County. It's starting to be used. That is my update.
Philip, I really want to thank you for bringing this forward. You and I had a conversation. My gosh, it must have been over a year ago out at Washington County. And you and I were negotiating with the other 2 chairs of the county and AMR about how to, satisfy the response times and the staffing issues and this and this and this. And as you and I were walking out of the building, I always remember you told me, what about a nurse navigation program? And I said, what's that? And that was your idea. And now I think it's going to be quite successful in Clackamas County. And thank you for thinking outside the box on this. And as I see some PGA people in the room, I really hope that we can get a good press release out on this. Is the program too new to see how many response times in relation to the AMR contract this is going to help? Do we have a metric on that yet?
We'll next have our next quarterly compliance information in mid-November. I think this makes a positive difference. It's still going to take a while before it truly ramps up and you're seeing that improvement on monthly response time compliance for our ambulance provider, but this is certainly a new tool and it is helpful.
A new
with those
tool,
issues.
and it is helpful on lowering response times. AMR, I'm very thankful for them implementing the program. I believe that was in lieu of fines. Is that right, Gary? Yes, so instead of fining a company who is being fined by, gee, that jurisdiction to the north of us, we decided to take a very unique approach in Clackamas County, and that was to offer scholarships to try to abate the workforce shortage and do nurse navigation to some of those calls that really were not acute calls that do not need to be transported by an ambulance, to try to massage those and triage those to give them to a different service. And just in 1 month, we do have some data that we can report on, and I really look forward to your presentation in mid-November with that. Commissioner Schrader, you are up next.
Philip, I hope that you apply for an NACO award on this, because it's right up there with a lot of the other innovative things we've done. And this one would really qualify for best in class. So if you guys could consider that, I think this is remarkable. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner West.
So can you clarify the number? When you pulled up the map, there's a lot of blue dots, but you spoke more specifically to a handful of calls. Are those just examples of a handful of calls, or is that the volume that we're seeing?
In the memo, I have the breakdown of the specific calls, so you can really see the call types.
Okay.
And exact. I tried to just summarize for the
Perfect.
verbal
Thank
report
you.
for you.
I just wanted to clarify. And then
Yes.
how many nurses do we use in the navigation?
I
Are
know
they
it's a-
full-time employees?
They're 24/7 AMR employees.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and would have to find out how large their workforce is. I'm not sure.
I'm just curious about the staffing, and if I'm sure as we learn or grow in this, that will become more tailored or specific. Great job. This is awesome. This is innovative. I didn't know we were the first. Are we the first in Oregon?
First in Oregon.
Wow. Maybe some other counties can replicate success where they see it, and I hope that this is replicated. This is a really great model, and I'm excited that we're using nurses to help solve a crisis that was quite persistent here in the metro area in Clackamas County. So great job, Philip.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Good morning, Philip.
Good morning.
I'd be curious to know, here in a few months after this washes out for a time, what the impact, this cost savings is on this nurse navigation program, cost savings to our first responders from the fire departments. That'd be interesting to know. Thank you.
Thank you. This is just a report. No action is required, correct? Thank you very much, Philip Mason Joyner, for coming forward.
All right, next, Scattered Sites Legislative Concept Proposal. Tony Halowetsky, Interim Director of Public and Government Affairs, will present. There is a memo in your packet.
Good morning, Commissioners. PGA is requesting the Board of County Commissioners' direction on whether to participate in a legislative concept proposed by Dev Northwest. Dev Northwest is a nonprofit organization that provides assets and financial services to low-income individuals and families throughout Oregon. They submitted a legislative concept to request funds to launch a pilot project in which they hope Clackamas County will collaborate. And this pilot will enhance affordable home ownership programs by working with public agencies such as Clackamas County when selling off their scattered public housing sites. So the pilot program would establish a community land trust where the trust holds the underlying land in a community trust, which then means potential home buyers only need to afford the homes. The Housing Authority supports the concept, and Representative Vanessa Hartman has agreed to sponsor the bill. Dev Northwest estimates a $4.2 million investment from the state would be sufficient to support the purchase of most, if not all, of the 70 identified properties in Clackamas County. And if you remember that the Supportive Housing Services presented their repositioning strategy in January, and the land trust model was one of the two models that they proposed moving forward with. The state funding would go directly to the developers, the trust developers, in this case, most likely Dev Northwest. If you approve to support this legislative concept, our role will be to do just that during the legislative efforts. If it passes, Dev Northwest would run the program, the trust program, to purchase the homes, and it would be financed by a deferred note carried by the Housing Authority. So our recommendation is to support the effort to advance this legislative concept submitted by Dev Northwest.
I have a couple of concerns about this program. Yes, it's wonderful, but, and there's two big buts for me on this. They're asking us to sign over all of our rights and deeds to these, how many scattered sites? Correct, to Dev Northwest, correct?
I believe that is true.
Yeah, so we would relinquish all ownership of this. And number two, how much skin in the game does Dev Northwest? Are they bringing any matching money besides their ability to build and manage the programs, which is very, yes. But once the county agrees to do this, 74 scattered sites, is that right, Tanya?
It's 70.
70, they're off our books and they're gone. And I think that's a big step for us. I think, H3S staff is in their mind, this is, wonderful, let's do it. But I'm not sure I'm there quite yet on this, and I've expressed my concerns privately. I don't know, Commissioners, I'd like to hear from you what you think about this going forward. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Is it the Housing Authority's opinion that if we agreed to this, it would be a cost savings to the county?
I don't know the answer to that. If I can ask Trent to come up, he may have a little bit more details than I do.
Somebody leave-
Adam or Rod, please come forward.
Yeah, come on. Come on down.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. Adam Brown, Deputy Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. So, Commissioner, you asked whether or not there would be a cost savings to the county. It's less of a question about cost savings and more a question about what's the ultimate fate of the properties. So when we presented this scattered site disposition strategy to you, we outlined 3 potential disposition pathways. One, making them available for purchase to community-based organizations for recovery-oriented housing. Preservation of existing affordable housing opportunities through home ownership like community land trust, or selling them on the open market. In talking with the service providers, including agencies like Dev Northwest, to apprise them of our intent to move forward with these strategies, we heard that capital, that upfront capital that they need to acquire the sites, convert them to the community land trust model, was a primary barrier for them, right? They don't just have that cash on hand. That's what resulted in this legislative ask for Dev Northwest. So it will allow us to sell the homes. We're required to sell them at market price per HUD rules, regardless of the pathway. What this would allow us to do is it gives an agency like Dev Northwest the capital that they need to acquire them and then preserve them as affordable homes. So, Chair, with regard to this restriction, yes, we're passing off the asset to a community-based organization, but it would come with a deed restriction that restricts the land's use for this purpose, and that's how you preserve the affordable home ownership opportunity.
Okay, so if we agree to this, then Dev Northwest, they assume all requirements for maintenance of these properties, and we have no more liability for their maintenance, is that right?
That's correct. The asset is passed to the community.
Okay.
So, and it would look a little bit different for the recovery-oriented housing model, right? That's passed to a community-based organization to own and operate. In this case, the community land trust model, Dev Northwest buys the asset. They convert it into this community land trust where the underlying land is owned by the trust. And then the home itself, the structure, is sold to the home buyer, but at a reduced rate because they don't own the underlying land.
Okay, so this agreement would relieve us from $1.2 million, $1.3 million a year in maintenance on those 70 properties.
At the end of our disposition process, the Housing Authority of Clackamas County will have no ownership
Okay.
stake in any of the 145 scattered site homes.
Okay, and what is the term that we're assured these properties will stay in the trust at low cost too?
That's a good question, and I can get back to you. I don't know if it's perpetual or if it's time limited.
Okay, that'd be interesting to know. Thank you.
So you're saying they're going to be sold and the county will be reimbursed at 4.2 million?
We'll sell the homes at the market price, period. This is a question of whether or not we're going to advocate for Dev Northwest to get some of that capital that they need. So let's use a hypothetical. Let's say the home price is $350,000, right? So that's the appraised value of the house. That's the price we have to sell it for. The reason Dev Northwest needs some capital is because they buy that for $350,000, and then they separate the land from the structure. The land has a certain value, the structure has a certain value, right? So they need the money that's necessary to own the land itself, and then the structure is sold to the prospective home buyer at some reduced rate from that $350,000, say $275,000 or so.
So I understand that. What question is not being answered for me is the county selling these and being reimbursed, or are we giving them away?
No, we're selling them at market price, period.
Okay, so we're selling them, and Dev Northwest is dependent on $4.2 million from the legislature to get going on this project. It's seed money, basically. Okay.
Exactly.
Where are they going to get the money to remodel, rehabilitate these?
That's a good question. I don't know if they intend to make investments in the rehab, but that's something we can learn more about, whether they've baked that into their legislative ask or if they have some other pathway for that.
And will they come back to the county once we sold them, I need help remodeling this house? And then we're back in the do loop.
Yeah. And we've
I'm
made,
not interested in being in a do loop. If we're going to sell these and receive compensation, which that I'm okay with, I didn't understand Tanya right away, or the presentation that was given to me earlier, I guess, is fine. Okay, and then we can take this, how many, 4 million, and then we can reinvest it in other ideas that this board has already approved. It's totally fine in capital construction. Sticks and bricks is great, okay. I just want to make sure that then now we're not going to be dinged and dinged and dinged for more and more and more, because we always are dinged for more and more and more. Okay. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, basically, the one comment I'd like to make is that this home ownership and stability is one of the main pillars for prosperity. Okay, home ownership is a huge deal in having people stabilize, be there. I think that we have worked with land trusts before in this county, have we not? Has it been this one or another one? That was one of my questions.
I'm not sure, but you were right, Commissioner, that, amongst our tools for affordable housing opportunities, most of it's rental housing, right? So this does present a unique opportunity for affordable home ownership.
Right, so if these people were to sell it, in other words, they can sell the house but not the land.
Correct.
So the house remains so it gives them more equity so they can move up the prosperity ladder. And, but that land and that home, they can sell it, but it'll always remain as an affordable alternative under the land trust model.
Correct.
That's what I'm.
Correct. And they get
Okay.
a share of the asset sale proceeds, the appreciated value of the home.
Share.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Commissioner Scholl?
okay.
Okay, so of these 70 properties, if we do this, some of them are going to continue to be rentals, correct? In other words, will Dev Northwest receive rental income from some of them? No.
No, these are sales.
They're all going to be sold. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner West?
Is there a tax abatement on the how does that impact if it's private, how does it impact property taxes?
Good question. We can look into that.
Is it a program where for the first 10 years it's abated as if it's raw land, and then after that it goes back to being on the tax rolls? Or is it never on the tax rolls because it's in a trust? Are we getting properties back on the tax rolls? Do they have to pay property taxes? That's interesting to me.
That's a really good question. I assume that the properties are not on the tax rolls now because they're owned by the housing authority. So this will give us an opportunity to look into whether or not they come onto the rolls.
I know previously there's been programs where you don't pay improvements on new construction for the first 10 years, and then you go back to, and kind of gives you a break in your taxes for 10 years as a new home buyer, first-time home buyer, and then it goes back on the full tax rolls after that first 10 years. That kind of abatement's been used to help get people, and I'm curious, though, with this unique situation, how does that impact property taxes? You talked about they don't own the land, and I may sound stupid or ignorant here, but my question is so is it kind of like a condo model in a way? Where you're owning this, it's standalone, it's not attached, it doesn't have shared walls, whatnot, but is it, so you own the sticks and bricks, you don't own the dirt. And they're receiving some benefit to help subsidize them through tax dollars or to keep the system going perpetually. Is there a ghost lien against the property that they pay back at the sale? How does that quite work? You said something about they get a share. Can you explain like the concept around how they would have some type of wealth generation through this process?
Yeah, so they get a share of the asset sale proceeds. So let's say and I don't have the details in front of me. It may be in the memo about the actual share, but let's say it's 50%, right, of the asset sale. So if the structure increases in value from $300,000 to $400,000, then as part of the way the acquisition deal is structured with the community land trust, that owner, the buyer, gets say half of that 100,000 appreciation. And we can get you the details on what the actual breakdown is.
So what happens if the market changes like we've seen where the market was primarily short sales in the mid-2000s and we don't have equity or we're neutral, we're not having appropriate growth? Who's stuck with the bill? What happens?
Good question. We can get you the details on that as well.
Those are
And
my
I-
questions. Thank you.
I have a couple more questions, too. In a way, it's a split deed situation between the land and the improvements on it. So if a trust owns the land, is that trust a nonprofit and therefore would be property tax exempt? But they have to apply. So property tax exempt just isn't a given in this county. Okay, you have to apply. And then is the property taxes different for the improvements? Is it the same one? I'd like to know that before we move forward. Secondly, when these people realize appreciation and gain in the property and they're able to sell and move on, is there a requirement for the money that they must buy a home and real estate? Because I'm not interested in lining somebody's pockets and they go rent a place. That has to be a must. And I would think that however we can ensure that going forward. So I think we have some more questions that need to be answered before we give this a green light, for my satisfaction anyway, and Commissioner West's satisfaction.
So Chair, to clarify, your question is, or what you want to know about that is, are the asset sale proceeds from the home buyer restricted in some way?
Well, yeah, I want to know if they are. I mean, because they just can't sell it and take a cruise to Hawaii or whatever.
Right.
They need to reinvest in like circumstances. I mean, I would think that's what this is designed to do, is to create home ownership for the long term. People have to have a place to live, so So I would like you to answer all these questions and then come back with answers. Maybe, Gary, we can tee this up next week at issues?
If they're ready, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next, advisory board appointments. Andrew, go ahead.
The Property Value Appeals Board, formerly known as the Board of Property Tax Appeals, staffed by the Clackamas County Clerk's Office, has 2 openings due to term expirations on a board of 8 members. Through the recruitment process, 8 applications were received and 2 are being recommended for selection as new board members. The recommendations are Mr. Charlie Tiller and Mr. Lawrence Krugel. The board could obviously select other candidates or require further recruitment. Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Chair, I move that we approve Charlie Tiller for Pool 1 and 2, and Lawrence, is it Krugel, for Pool 1 and 2, to the 2024, 2025, and the 2025-2026 Property Value Appeals Board. Terms would begin October 15th, 2024, and end June 30th, 2026.
Second?
Seconded.
Commissioner West has moved we approve the Property Value Appeals Board appointments of Charlie Tiller and Lawrence Krugel, and Commissioner Scholl has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please take the poll?
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Gary, what's next?
Next, review of your board business meeting agenda for this Thursday, October 24th, 2024 at 10 a.m. You will have a public hearing on the first reading of an ordinance to amend the county code related to the ambulance service plan, and then you'll have all the consent agenda items you discussed today. If you have any questions on any of these items, please let me know, and staff and I will answer it for you prior to Thursday. Last item today, Chair, is Commissioner Communications.
Thank you. Commissioner West, you're up first.
I'm going to save all my communications for Thursday.
Okay, Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a few comments about what we just spoke about. Actually, I'm a member of the NACO Resilient Economies and Communities program. So what I've been doing is looking up a lot of the opportunities that, again, brings prosperities to people, jobs, and housing is a big piece of this. And so I've been doing a lot of homework. Most of my reading is, what does that mean, and the intersection of economic mobility with having appropriate housing. And I do believe that we've worked with land trusts in this county before. I'm really like the idea of this because it will give me an opportunity and hopefully showcase our county that I'm also a member of the NACO Leadership Advisory Group and Counties for Economic Mobility, and that's a group of us across the nation that are looking at ways to move people up the ladder. And as I said, home ownership is a big piece of that. I'll be trying to give you folks reports on the meetings that we've been having and the items we've been discussing. It's a group that includes folks from rural, urban, suburban, and counties, again, across the nation. And right now, we are starting to advise rural areas to start with, but we will also move into areas that are more urban and suburban as time goes on. But I just want to say, I think this is an intriguing idea, and I think that it's something that's worth looking into. So, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, good morning. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, I'm scheduled to attend the Mayor Wheeler's State of the City. Is anybody else going to attend?
I don't think I can make it,
Okay,
but please report back. I'm interested. Tell the mayor hi for me.
I'll do that. They'll be glad to hear from you, I'm sure. But that's all I have for you.
Thank you, Mark. I'm just going through the messaging here. It looks like we might get Oregon is expecting some major fall fronts moving through the Pacific Northwest this week, from the Oregon coast to Southwest Washington to the Cascade Mountains. If you look out the windows, commissioners, Mount Hood has a dusting of snow. So our weather is changing. Better get those pears and apples picked.
'Tis the season.
Thank you very much, commissioners, for your good work. Seeing no further business, we are adjourned.